Loneliness isn't a curse, it's a compass pointing you back to yourself. What if the emptiness you feel isn't there to hurt you, but to wake you up? You're not broken, you're just disconnected from the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Loneliness is often misunderstood. Most people see it as a flaw, a weakness, or a permanent label they must carry. But in truth, loneliness is not the final verdict on your life. It is a signal. It's your mind and body's way of communicating that something deep within you is longing for alignment. When you say, "I feel lonely," what you're really saying is that there's a gap between the emotional state you're living in and the emotional state you were designed to thrive in. This isn't a punishment. It's a biological and energetic prompt to pay attention, to evolve, and to create a richer connection not only with others, but with yourself. You see, every emotion we feel is an instruction from the body. Just as physical pain warns you of injury, emotional discomfort signals that something in your inner environment is calling for change. Loneliness is one of the most primal of these signals. Thousands of years ago, being disconnected from the tribe meant danger. Your nervous system evolved to interpret separation as a survival threat. So when you feel alone, your body activates certain responses. Your heart rate shifts, your cortisol levels rise, and your brain searches for patterns to explain the discomfort. This ancient wiring is still with us today, even though the threats we face are no longer saber-toothed tigers, but thoughts, memories, and stories we tell ourselves. The challenge is that when loneliness lingers, it can become a self-reinforcing state. The mind begins to search for evidence that you are alone, unwanted, or unseen, and in doing so, it finds plenty to confirm the narrative. This is not because the world is conspiring against you, but because the brain is designed to validate its current emotional state. It's operating like a radar, scanning the environment for signals that match the inner feeling. If the feeling is loneliness, your attention will be drawn to cues that keep it alive. People who seem distant, opportunities missed, relationships that didn't work out, and even memories from decades ago. And here's the most important realization. Loneliness is not simply about the absence of people. You can be surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues, and still feel profoundly alone. This is because the sensation of loneliness is not first created by the outer world. It is born in the inner world. It's a reflection of how connected you are to yourself, to your own thoughts, to your own heart, to the vision you carry for your life. When that connection is weak, when you're living disconnected from your own essence, no number of people in a room will make you feel truly at home. When you understand loneliness as a signal, you begin to approach it differently. Instead of trying to numb it with distractions or bury it under busyness, you can listen to it. You can ask, what is this trying to teach me? What is this feeling showing me about how I've been living? Sometimes the answer will be that you've been neglecting your own needs. Sometimes it will reveal that you've been seeking validation externally while ignoring the parts of yourself that need your attention most. And sometimes it will simply remind you that you've been living in autopilot, going through the motions without truly feeling alive. At the biological level, loneliness is your nervous system's way of saying, reconnect, re-engage, realign. This isn't just about reaching out to other people. It's about reaching inward first. Think about it. If you were in the middle of the ocean, separated from land, your instinct would be to swim toward the shore. Loneliness is the same signal, except the shore is not a physical location. It's the place inside where you feel whole, grounded, and seen by yourself. Until you find that place, even if someone were to throw you a lifeline, you might still feel adrift. It's also important to recognize that loneliness can show up not only during times of isolation, but also during transitions. When you've outgrown a certain phase of life, but haven't yet stepped fully into the next, There's a natural in-between period where the old connections no longer feel aligned, and the new ones haven't yet formed. This liminal space can feel like emptiness, but in reality, it's the soil from which something new will grow. If you misinterpret this space as permanent, you might give up before the new chapter begins. The modern world can intensify loneliness because it offers constant digital connection without true emotional intimacy. You can scroll for hours, see thousands of faces, and yet never feel genuinely seen. Your brain gets the illusion of social contact, but your heart knows the difference. This is why so many people today carry an invisible weight of loneliness. They're overworked on surface-level interactions, but starved for depth, presence, and authenticity. And here's where the shift begins. The moment you stop judging loneliness as a flaw, you reclaim your power over it. When you see it as a neutral signal, a message from your inner compass, you can work with it instead of against it. It becomes the call that invites you to slow down, to become curious about your inner world, and to start building a connection with yourself that's so strong, no circumstance can shake it. This doesn't mean you won't desire relationships. It means you'll no longer rely on them to prove your worth or to make you feel complete. Once you see loneliness through this lens, it loses its heaviness. It's no longer the dark room you're trapped in, but the doorway to a deeper life. And the key is always the same: to turn inward, to listen, and to begin the work of reconnection from the inside out when you feel lonely. It's easy to think it's only about the present moment, that it's about what's happening right now. But in many cases, the loneliness you feel today is not purely born from the current moment. It's a continuation of the past. The body, and more specifically the subconscious mind, has an extraordinary ability to remember emotional experiences far longer than the conscious mind does. You may not recall every detail of your past, but your body remembers exactly how it felt to be left out, ignored, abandoned, or misunderstood. Those memories are stored not as mere thoughts, but as patterns of chemical and neurological responses, which means your body can recreate those same emotional states without any new event needing to happen. Think about it. Emotions are not just abstract feelings. They're biological states. When something happens that makes you feel hurt or disconnected, your brain releases specific chemicals, your heart rate shifts, your breathing changes, and your muscles tense in certain ways. If that state is repeated enough, say through repeated experiences of neglect or rejection, it becomes familiar. The body begins to recognize it as normal. And what is familiar, the body will seek, even if it is painful, because the body is designed to prefer the known over the unknown. This is why people can feel lonely even when surrounded by people who care about them. Their body has memorized loneliness so deeply that it feels more natural than connection. This is the essence of living in the past. The external world might have changed, but your internal world is still replaying old patterns. The neural pathways that were wired during those past moments are still firing today. The brain is like a record player that keeps spinning the same track even if the world outside the window has moved on. You might logically tell yourself, I'm not alone, there are people who care about me. But the body whispers a different story. This is how we've always felt. This is what's safe to feel. The body becomes the subconscious mind running its own program that overrides the conscious intention. When the body is living in the past, it doesn't just hold onto old memories. It actively recreates them in the present. For example, you might meet someone new, and within minutes, your brain starts scanning for similarities between them and people from your past who hurt you. Without realizing it, you become guarded, closed off, or overly cautious, and the very connection you desire slips further away. This is not sabotage in the traditional sense. It's the body's attempt to protect you from being hurt again, even though that protection often comes at the cost of isolation. The chemistry of emotion plays a huge role here. Emotions like loneliness, sadness, and rejection are associated with specific chemical signatures in the body. Over time, the cells of your body become accustomed to receiving those chemical signals. Just like an addiction to a substance, the body becomes addicted to these emotions. It craves the chemical familiarity, and so it will find ways to trigger them, even if that means interpreting neutral events as hurtful or isolating. You might walk into a room, see two people talking, and instantly feel excluded, not because they intended to exclude you, but because your body recognized an old pattern and delivered the emotional response before your conscious mind could intervene. This is why simply telling yourself to stop feeling lonely doesn't work. You can't override a deeply ingrained physiological pattern with just positive thinking. The body has to be taught a new way of being. That means creating new experiences and emotions in the present that are powerful enough to rewire the brain and change the body's chemical baseline. It's not about denying the past, it's about no longer living there. Memory itself is a fascinating thing when it comes to loneliness. Your brain does not store memories like perfect photographs. Instead, it reconstructs them each time you recall them, influenced by your current emotional state. If you're feeling lonely now, your mind will be more likely to recall past events that match that feeling, and in doing so, it will reinforce the narrative that you've always been alone. This creates a loop. The present feeling colors the memory strengthens the feeling, and the cycle continues. Breaking this cycle begins with awareness, realizing that much of what you feel today may not actually belong to today. You start to notice moments where your reaction is disproportionate to the current situation, and you recognize that you are responding not to the present, but to a ghost of the past. This awareness is not about self-blame, it's about reclaiming choice. When you realize your body is living in the past, you can begin to show it that the present is different. There is also a subtle but important aspect here. When the body lives in the past, it can prevent you from fully seeing the opportunities for connection that exist right now. You might miss signals of care, empathy, and friendship because they don't match the familiar emotional landscape you've been conditioned to expect. In other words, if you've spent years feeling unseen, your nervous system may not even register when someone is genuinely seeing you. It's not because you're broken. It's because your body has been tuned to a different frequency. This tuning is why healing from loneliness is not just about meeting new people or being more social. Without changing the internal program, you could meet dozens of new people and still feel alone. The change must happen at the level of the body and mind together, teaching your nervous system through repeated experiences that connection is safe, that love is safe, that presence is safe. Only then does the body begin to stop reaching for the chemical comfort of the past and start settling into the possibilities of the present. When we think about escaping loneliness, the first instinct is usually to look outward, toward other people, new environments, or fresh experiences. But lasting change doesn't start outside, it begins within. You can place yourself in the most vibrant social setting in the world and still feel disconnected if the emotional patterns within you remain the same. This is why true transformation comes from rewiring your inner experience, teaching your mind and body to operate from a different emotional baseline. The brain is constantly shaping itself in response to what you think, feel, and do. Every time you have a thought, a network of neurons fires together, and every time they fire together, they strengthen their connection. If the majority of your inner dialogue has been shaped by feelings of loneliness, self, doubt, or unworthiness, then your neural wiring will reflect those emotional states. These connections become the default settings your brain returns to. Without intervention, the mind will keep producing the same kinds of thoughts, which trigger the same emotions, which then reinforce the same thoughts. A feedback loop that can last for years. Rewiring begins by interrupting this loop. This is not about forcing yourself to think positive thoughts while ignoring the heaviness you feel. It's about creating an entirely new internal experience that your body can learn to recognize as familiar and safe. One of the most powerful ways to do this is by generating elevated emotions in the present moment, even before your outer world gives you a reason to feel them. You don't wait for someone to make you feel loved before you feel love. You practice feeling it first. You don't wait for a big accomplishment to feel proud. You allow pride to rise from within. This may sound counterintuitive because most people are conditioned to believe emotions should be reactions to events. We're told to wait until something good happens to feel joy, until someone treats us with kindness to feel loved, until we have proof of success to feel confident. But if you only feel better when the outside world changes, you're living at the mercy of your circumstances. You've given away the power to create your inner reality. Rewiring flips this script. You generate the emotional state you want to live in now, and by doing so, you teach your brain and body that this is your new baseline. Neuroscience shows us that the brain cannot perfectly distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. If you close your eyes and fully immerse yourself in the feeling of being loved, appreciated, or connected, your brain begins to wire new pathways as if it were actually happening. Your body releases the same neurochemicals that it would in a real moment of connection. Over time, this practice reshapes your internal environment, making those elevated emotions easier to access and more familiar than the old states of loneliness or lack. The more you rehearse these elevated emotions, the more natural they become. At first, it might feel awkward or even false because your body is used to different chemistry, but just like learning a new skill, repetition builds mastery. You are teaching your nervous system that connection, joy, and love are not rare, fleeting experiences. They are safe, reliable states you can return to at will. And the more familiar they become, the more your subconscious begins to seek out situations that match them in the outer world. This is where the shift from what's missing to what's possible becomes crucial. Loneliness focuses your attention on what you don't have, on the absence of connection, the people who aren't there, the conversations you're not part of. By continually rehearsing those thoughts and emotions, you're wiring your brain to keep scanning for more of the same. But when you train yourself to focus on what's possible, on the relationships you want to create, the experiences you're ready to have, you redirect your attention and energy toward building a future that's different from your past. You're no longer recycling old emotions. You're designing new ones. There's also a physiological reason why this inner work matters so much. When you generate elevated emotions like gratitude or love, your heart rhythm becomes more coherent, meaning it shifts into a smooth, ordered pattern. This state of coherence affects your brain waves, your hormones, and even your immune system. In other words, by changing your emotional state, you're not just shifting your mood, you're influencing your entire biological system. A coherent state tells your body that it's safe, that connection is possible, and that you can trust the present moment. Rewiring the inner experience isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about breaking free from the emotional autopilot that has kept you stuck. It's the conscious act of choosing a different internal state, not once, but repeatedly until it becomes second nature. When you wake up in the morning, instead of defaulting to yesterday's emotions, you can pause, breathe, and decide, who do I want to be today? What do I want to feel before the day even begins? You start living as if the life you want is already here, and in doing so, you become the kind of person who naturally attracts it. This process requires patience because the old patterns will try to pull you back. The body might crave the chemical comfort of loneliness simply because it's familiar, and you may find yourself slipping into old thought loops. That's not failure. It's the body testing whether you're serious about the change. Each time you choose to return to the elevated emotions, even for a few minutes, you're strengthening the new wiring and weakening the old. With time, something profound happens. Your inner state begins to feel so good, so stable, that the presence or absence of others doesn't determine your sense of connection. Instead of needing the outer world to match your inner desires, you become the source of your own emotional fulfillment. And from that place, the relationships, opportunities, and experiences that come into your life are no longer filling a void. They're amplifying a fullness you've already cultivated within yourself. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, and every state of being you maintain sends a signal into the world. This signal isn't metaphorical. It's both measurable and influential. Your body is an electromagnetic field, and your emotions are the fuel that give it its specific frequency. When you're living in the emotion of loneliness, your signal is colored by that frequency. It's not a judgment, it's simply physics and biology at work. You are broadcasting, moment by moment, a field of energy that either invites or repels experiences and people that match it. Most people aren't conscious of the energy they radiate. They focus on what they want: more friends, deeper relationships, meaningful connections. But they don't realize that they may still be operating from an inner state that contradicts those desires. You can't send out a frequency of lack and expect abundance to come back. You can't radiate fear of rejection and expect unconditional acceptance to find you. The energy you're radiating is like a silent announcement you're making to the world, and whether or not you're aware of it, other people can feel it. Human beings are wired to pick up on emotional cues. Before you exchange a single word with someone, your nervous systems are already communicating. This happens through subtle signals: the tone of your voice, the openness of your posture, the way your eyes meet theirs, the rhythm of your breath. But beneath those physical cues, there's an even deeper layer: the electromagnetic field of your heart, which extends several feet beyond your body. The frequency of that field is influenced directly by your emotional state. This means when you walk into a room, people can sense you before they know you. They may not consciously register what they're picking up, but they will feel either drawn to your presence or distanced from it. If you've been living in loneliness for a long time, your energy may have settled into a contracted, self-protective pattern. You might not notice it, but your body language, your micro-expressions, and your unspoken energy could be signaling, "I'm closed." Even if you desperately want connection, it's not because you don't want to be open. It's because the emotional state you've rehearsed has shaped your body and your energy into that posture. And here lies the paradox. The more you unconsciously radiate the frequency of separation, the more separation tends to show up in your life. The shift begins when you take responsibility for the energy you broadcast. This doesn't mean pretending to be happy when you're not. It means becoming aware of the emotions you've been radiating, and then intentionally generating the ones that align with the reality you want to experience. If you want connection, you begin to practice the energy of openness. If you want kindness, you radiate kindness. If you want to be seen, you start seeing others with genuine presence. In doing so, you change the vibrational signal you send into the field around you. There's a powerful feedback loop between your energy and your external reality. When you radiate a higher, more coherent emotional frequency, like love, gratitude, or joy, you naturally draw in experiences and people that match it. This is not magic or wishful thinking, it's resonance. Just as tuning forks vibrate in harmony when they are in the same frequency, humans gravitate toward others who share a similar energetic tone. People feel safer, lighter, and more themselves in the presence of someone radiating coherent energy, and as a result, they want to be around that person. Radiating a new energy requires more than a momentary shift, it's a daily practice. The body's old emotional habits will try to pull you back into familiar states, and the frequency you project will reflect that unless you consciously choose differently. This is why inner work is essential. Meditation, visualization, breathwork, or any practice that helps you generate elevated emotions can serve as your daily signal reset. By spending time each day embodying the emotions you want to live in, you begin to condition your nervous system to make them your new normal. The fascinating thing is that when you start living in this elevated state, people notice, even if they can't explain why. They might say, "You seem different," or "I just feel good around you." What they're responding to is not just your words or actions. It's the shift in the energy you're carrying. You've moved from emitting a signal of separation to one of connection, and others can feel that in ways that transcend logic. This also changes the way you interact with the world. When you operate from a higher energy, you stop entering situations looking for what you can get, and instead show up ready to give. This doesn't mean overextending yourself. It means bringing your fullness into the moment without waiting for someone else to fill you up first. That shift alone changes the entire dynamic of your relationships. Instead of silently broadcasting, "Complete me," energy, you're radiating, "I am complete, and I'm here to share that." Energy is contagious. When you walk into a space carrying the frequency of openness, warmth, and presence, you unconsciously invite others to rise to that level with you. Conversations become richer, connections form more naturally, opportunities present themselves more easily, not because you're chasing them, but because you've become magnetic to them. Your reality starts to organize itself around the energy you've chosen to sustain. The truth is, we're all radiating something at all times. The question is whether we're doing it by default, letting old emotions and stories dictate our signal, or by design, intentionally shaping the field we carry into the world. When you choose the latter, you stop being a passive participant in your life and start becoming the architect of your reality. You move from waiting for the world to change before you can feel better, to changing how you feel so the world has no choice but to respond differently to you. The deepest form of freedom from loneliness comes not when you finally find the right people, but when you realize you don't need anyone else to complete you. This isn't about rejecting human connection or pretending you're fine being alone when you're not. It's about understanding that real connection begins from a place of inner wholeness. When you feel whole within yourself, relationships become an addition to your joy, not the source of it. You no longer depend on others to fill an emotional gap because you've already filled it from within. Most people enter relationships, whether friendships, partnerships, or even professional connections, carrying an unspoken request: make me feel loved, make me feel worthy, make me feel enough. When two people come together, each expecting the other to complete them, it creates a fragile dynamic. The moment one person fails to meet that expectation, the other feels empty again. But when you approach connection already feeling whole, you no longer place that weight on anyone else. Instead of entering relationships with a need to get, you enter them with a desire to give. This changes everything about the way you connect. Becoming whole begins with turning inward and acknowledging that the source of love, worth, and belonging you've been searching for outside of yourself has always been within you. This is more than a poetic idea. It's a practical truth rooted in how your mind and body work. Your thoughts and emotions are constantly shaping your internal experience. If you've been rehearsing thoughts like "I'm not enough," or "I need someone to make me happy," your body has learned to feel incomplete. Those patterns keep you waiting for external validation before you can feel secure. But the moment you begin to generate feelings of worthiness, gratitude, and love from within, without needing a trigger from the outside, you begin rewiring those patterns. This inner shift doesn't mean you never desire companionship. It means you stop needing it to feel whole. That subtle difference is powerful. Need carries desperation, which others can sense. Wholeness carries peace, which others are drawn to. When you are complete within yourself, you give people the gift of being with you without the pressure of having to fix you, heal you, or constantly reassure you. The connection becomes lighter, more authentic, and far more enjoyable for everyone involved. One of the most common misunderstandings about loneliness is that it can only be solved through the presence of other people. While meaningful relationships are deeply important, they are not the cure for the kind of loneliness that comes from being disconnected from yourself. You can stand in a crowded room and still feel alone if your internal dialogue is filled with self, criticism, shame, or unworthiness. Conversely, you can spend time alone and feel deeply connected if your internal world is filled with compassion, self-respect, and a sense of purpose. To become whole, you begin building a relationship with yourself the same way you would with someone you love. You spend time with yourself not just physically, but with presence and attention. You listen to your own thoughts without judgment, you tend to your needs with care, and you celebrate your own growth. You start honoring your boundaries, speaking to yourself with kindness, and allowing yourself to rest when you need it. These small acts of self-respect send a powerful signal to your subconscious. I am worth my own love and attention. Over time, that signal becomes your baseline, and the feelings of incompleteness begin to dissolve. There's also a deeper layer to wholeness, the recognition that you are not defined by your past experiences, your mistakes, or the moments when you felt unseen. Those may have shaped parts of you, but they are not the entirety of you. Wholeness comes when you integrate those experiences without letting them dictate your identity. You begin to see yourself not as someone broken who needs to be fixed, but as someone evolving who is already complete at their core. Wholeness is magnetic because it's rare. Many people live in a constant state of seeking validation, approval, or proof that they matter. When you meet someone who is already grounded in their own worth, it's disarming in the best way. They don't demand your energy, but they invite your presence. They don't need to compete for attention, but they naturally stand out. This is the kind of energy that draws healthy, lasting relationships, because it's built on abundance rather than scarcity. When you are whole, you approach the world differently. You're less reactive to rejection because it doesn't define you. You're less afraid of solitude because it no longer feels like a punishment. It becomes a space where you recharge and deepen your connection with yourself. You stop chasing people who can't meet you where you are, and instead attract those who resonate with your fullness. You no longer settle for half-hearted connections because you're not trying to fill an emptiness. You're inviting others to share in the fullness you already live in. The journey to becoming whole isn't a single moment of revelation. It's a consistent practice. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you strengthen your inner foundation. Every time you honor your needs instead of betraying them for approval, you reinforce your self-worth. Every time you generate joy from within instead of waiting for it to come from outside, you expand your capacity to live in that state. Over time, these choices add up, and you find that the loneliness that once felt like a constant presence has been replaced by a deep, steady connection to yourself. When you live from wholeness, the presence of others is a gift, not a requirement. Relationships become a space where two complete individuals share their worlds, rather than two incomplete individuals trying to merge into one in order to feel whole. This creates a foundation for relationships that are healthier, more balanced, and more resilient. Instead of fearing loss, you trust that you will remain whole no matter what changes around you. And from that place, love and connection are free to flow without the shadow of need controlling them. Loneliness is not a life sentence. It is a messenger. It calls you to look inward, to understand the patterns you've been carrying, and to choose a new way of being. When you see it as a signal rather than a flaw, you reclaim the power to change it. When you recognize that your body may still be living in the past, you begin to free yourself from old emotional patterns and create space for new experiences. By rewiring your inner world, you no longer wait for life to give you a reason to feel connected. You generate that connection from within. When you understand that the energy you radiate shapes the reality you live in, you become intentional about the emotions you practice and the signals you send into the world. And when you commit to becoming whole first, you stop searching for someone else to complete you and instead invite relationships that enhance your fullness. This journey is not about erasing the need for human connection. It's about transforming the way you approach it. From wholeness, from self-generated love, from a coherent inner state, you naturally create a life where you feel seen, valued, and deeply connected, not because the world finally changed, but because you did.